As we approach the holiday season, many of our thoughts turn to home and family. For a generation of Native Americans, now in their 30s and 40s, home and family are not easily defined. When they were children, American Indians comprised 1% of the population, yet they represented nearly 12% of all adoptions. The vast majority of these adoptees went to non-Indian families. While some adoptees found their way into loving homes, many did not. But earlier this fall, they all found a symbolic home in Kashina. They came from 11 states and Canada, but for many of the Native people here, the journey began long ago. This is a special powwow for the lost ones, as they're known in Native circles. Children who were adopted out of their tribes or fostered, almost always by non-Indians. Between 1950 and 1974, encouraged by the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, thousands of Native children were removed from their homes. For the government, adoption became a tragic solution to reservation poverty.
My mother went to her grave grieving for her grandchildren. When the social service department came and took them from her, one of the little girl's shoe fell off, and my mother carried it with her for years. I'd see her sitting in her bedroom crying, hanging on to the little shoe. She said to me, someday they're going to come back, I know it.
In early October, they did come back to the Menominee Nation in northeastern Wisconsin. Menominee hosted the powwow and offered itself as a symbolic home to adoptees of all tribes, many of whom don't know who their people are. Liz Hall traveled from British Columbia to be here.
Finding out who you are. A lot of the records in Canada, I think, and here will not tell you what kind of First Nation person you are, if they tell you at all. They'll tell you something that is non-descriptive. You're 1/4 Indian. Your mother was 1/2 this and 1/2 that, maybe. And you never know if that's right or wrong.
And not knowing carries a price, according to the woman who organized the powwow. Sandy Whitehawk, a Lakota Sioux who was taken from her home at age 18 months, says Indian adoptees often feel ashamed that they don't know their culture.
There's not a mystery to being who we are. We are just who we are. But this is a natural process that was interrupted for us, so it feels very foreign. And that's why they're feeling anxious and nervous.
Daniel Greycloud Jacob is Lakota, a Plains Indian who was raised in Midtown Manhattan.
It's really kind of scary. I mean, I've never spent a lot of time with Indian people. I don't know how to act. I don't quite know what to say. I'm just trying to be guided by the same, you know, openness of heart and willingness to be here that got me here in the first place, you know. And I'll just sort of trust that having been led this far, that I'll be, you know, led the rest of the way.
Today I carry the name Whitehawk, Sandy Whitehawk.
Whitehawk was led not only back to her own community, but to others. For the past 2 years, she's been traveling across the country, spreading the word and publicizing the powwow. Here on the Lakota Ojibwe Reservation this summer, she told elders about her efforts to reconnect the lost ones with their tribes and families and asked for their blessing.
I was so scared to speak to them because I thought, who am I to talk to 225 elders? Who am I to say, can I bring up some real ugly issues for you all after all these years?
Hi,
Ellen. I can't remember how many people came up to me afterwards and hugged me.
Hello.
I enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
If you can enjoy something that's as sad as that is.
I know. It's very hard. I've done a lot of crying.
Yeah.
I'm
sure you did. Yeah. Excuse me, I just got to give you a hug, my dear.
You know how when you have a Band-Aid on too long, the gauze thing sticks to that scab and you pull the scab off and it hurts, but It's like it finally can heal completely in the way it's supposed to heal, and I think that's what's happening here.
Hi, Cody. I was so glad to see your face there.
We've just put a Band-Aid on it to survive, because we have had to. I mean, we've had to, can't resolve all our issues at once. And I think it's just time to take that final strip off and air it out and move on.
Part of that airing out was a formal apology from the Child Welfare League of America. In the 1950s, the League teamed with the BIA to arrange nearly 400 Indian adoptions. The League's impact wasn't so much in the numbers, but in the movement it inspired. By 1974, according to the American Indian Policy Center, 25 to 35% of Native children were separated from their families. In Minnesota, for example, 1 in 4 Indian babies was permanently removed from her home.
It was wrong, it was hurtful, and it reflected a kind of bias that brings to the surface feelings of shame, now that we can look back with 20/20 hindsight to exactly what happened in those years.
Shame, anger, guilt, sorrow. Indian children given up, and the families who gave them up, say the adoption issue brings up questions of belonging and the emotions that go with them. They're feelings that few people really understand. That's why veterans, a common presence at all powwows, are especially visible at this one.
Combat veterans, unlike any other person that has had to leave community, know what it's like to leave, do something they maybe didn't want to do, even take things on they didn't really want to take on, and come back to a community and feel separated from them, not feel connected. And they would understand what that's like for an adoptee.
Veterans stand as guardians in a ceremony intended to help adoptees reconnect as Native people. White Hawk calls it the wiping of the tears ceremony.
The wiping of the tears is used for grief, healing grief and loss, sorrow. And the wiping of the tears is bringing the adoptees out to the center and fostered individuals into the arena. And Chris, the song will begin, and he will smudge them off, and Chris will fan them off. And I've heard him say to them, this is when you let go of the anger and resentment, any frustration, fear, you forgive yourself, forgive what happened to you.
Did it give you some kind of comfort?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I haven't felt like this I can't even remember. It sort of lifts sadness, I think, is what it feels like.
Some of these adoptees will never find their birth families. Others will, but may not emotionally reconnect with them. But here, each adoptee is welcomed back into the circle with handshakes and hugs.
What I was afraid of is that people would think that we were angry and that we wanted some sort of amends. And most adoptees they'll have different kinds of feelings, but really all we want is a sense of belonging. And most parents, grandpas and grandmas and aunts and uncles, just want to know that we're okay.
Thanks to videographers Everett Södinga and David Braga for those pictures. The number of Indian adoptions began to decrease in 1978 with passage of the Indian Child Welfare Act. ICWA, as it's known, essentially recognizes that tribal courts have ultimate jurisdiction in matters affecting Indian children, including adoption and foster care.